I'm going to ask you all a question that I want you to think about. So if you have a piece of paper nearby, go ahead and grab it. If not, you can just participate mentally. How do you define yourself? On a piece of paper, I want you to write down who you are in 5 words. You can start with I am and complete the sentence with something that defines you. We'll give this some time so you can go ahead and think about it. When I asked you that question, how many of you felt pressure trying to answer it? For some of you, it may have come more easily and you struggled to limit yourself to just 5. Or maybe you struggled to even get to 5. Maybe you started out by writing down your name or where you were born, your race, or your gender. Maybe you started out by saying your major or your profession or your talents or your hobbies. Maybe you wrote down an adjective that describes you or a personal value you have. The potential for this question is filled with endless possibilities, yet a definition requires such a narrow platform to stand your ground on. This probably wasn't the first time someone asked you a question about your identity, and it's probably not going to be the last. But hopefully, I'll be able to give you a new perspective about how you can answer this question in the future. Let's first explore why people feel the need to define themselves. We're all familiar with the purpose of a box. Boxes help us organize and transport things from point A to point B. And as humans, we too try to organize our life the way a box helps us organize our house and our belongings. When we feel lost, what do? We jump in a box and we try to give it a purpose, a position, a label, a definition. The problem with jumping into a box is that they're rigid, inflexible, and opaque. And there's only so much you can put into a box until it's full and you can't put anything else in there. It's the same with the definition. When you try to define yourself and your position in this world, you're setting boundaries on your potential and the person you can become, inhibiting you from reaching your full potential and experiencing all that you can offer this world. A box has a limitation. A definition has a limitation, but your potential in this world, however, does not. There's a more effective way to handle the uncertainty we inherently feel of not belonging anywhere. But boxing ourselves up and trying to give ourselves a definition is not the answer. And I won't deny the presence of a comfort zone, which is why we should all change our perspective of them. We should consider a comfort zone a bubble. The difference between a bubble and a box is that a bubble is transparent. You can see inside and out of it. So a person inside a bubble is aware of the space they are taking up and the potential that exists around them. But most importantly, in a bubble, you have the power inside of you to make the bubble bigger. So how big is your world? When I was born, my world was very small. I weighed only 3.1 pounds, and I was born 5 weeks premature. But my world wasn't only small because I was small. My world was small because I didn't know how to take up space. You see, not even 60 seconds of taking my first breath of oxygen, I turned over to my side, and I saw 2 other girls who kind of looked like me sitting in my bubble. And this is a picture of me and my triplet sisters. And as you can imagine, growing up with my 2 best friends, laughing, joking, playing, it felt like nothing in this world could ever bring me down. Wherever I went in life, I had a backup squad, and it always felt like it was us against the world. And that was very apparent to me as an advantage when we immigrated from South Africa to California at the age of 12, and it felt like nothing in my world had changed at all. But then, when I began college at San Diego State University for the first time alone, I discovered that I didn't know who I was apart from my sisters. I felt more whole as a fraction, and I was going to have to learn how to start taking up more space. My journey may have started small, but I was going to build a mentality that would push me to make my world bigger. So what did I do? I started breathing more. I started living, exploring, asking questions, trying new things. I found my voice, and I wanted it to be heard. I started expanding my bubble. The second I let go of the definition of being a triplet is when I started to pave my own road and become the woman that I am today. Growing up, it was difficult for me to focus my hobbies, and I always felt that I was just hopping onto the bandwagon of whatever my sisters were doing. Which is why the first time I picked up a canvas, I was 22 years old in my sophomore year of college, and I discovered my artistic abilities. I had always been an artist, I just didn't know it yet. And the more that I discovered who I was and started expressing myself authentically, the less I was worried about being apart from my sisters. And it made me wonder what else in my life is inhibiting me from reaching my full potential. Molds of a college education. There can be a lot of pressure at university to pick a major. I started out as a journalism major because I was told to apply to just one and have a point of interest. Yet when I got to college, there were so many things outside of my major that I was interested in. And so I decided to pave my own way. I created my own degree, which was called an interdisciplinary studies degree in 3 departments of journalism, advertising, art multimedia, and film television. I was hands-on with creating my degree, and it fueled my creative spirit. Most universities offer this degree to students. They just don't know about it because they think they have to fit into a mold, picking a major in order to be successful. I was also the first person at San Diego State University to study abroad at a school in Israel called IDC. I found out about the school and it interested me, and I worked with the school and petitioned in order to get that school approved. I fought for myself. I started to take up more space. Lastly, I'll talk about the definition of my physical appearance. When people meet me for the first time, their initial reaction is about how small I am. And I was expected to reach only 4'6" when I was tested for dwarfism. And I spent many years of my life taking growth hormones in the hopes of one day reaching the average height for a female. Today I'm 4'10", but people still consider my height a disability. They think that I may be hindered in my abilities, or that I may be weak and incapable. And I have a built-in stereotype that defines me by my stature. But height means nothing if you aren't able to develop a growth mindset. After all, life is about discovery and reaching new heights in your experience. Growth requires finding your limit line and crossing it in order to make your world bigger. It's about self-awareness and potential, understanding your current position, but also knowing that there is so much more that you're capable of achieving and experiencing. I've actively been working on expanding my bubble to give it more meaning. I began teaching gymnastics a year ago, and I now practice plyometrics calisthenics training. I can do 20 pull-ups, I can do 5 muscle-ups, pistol squats, 1-arm push-ups, you name it. With a growth mindset, I believe that my skills and abilities can be developed through hard work and dedication. Actions can change an outcome, and there is a connection between hard work and improvement. To develop a growth mindset, you have to be willing to accept all that you don't know and start embracing the experience of being a student again. When you realize all the things that you fall short from in your life can be improved on by learning, you begin to gain confidence in yourself. A passion or a desire is just a starting point, but if you want to be great and discover your full potential, you gotta be prepared to work hard. You gotta find your boundaries and actively work on expanding them to give your life more meaning. For the past 2 years, I've actively been running towards fear. I've been chasing the things that I don't know and searching for the lines of my limitation, which is exactly how I found myself in Richmond, Virginia, a city that I'd never been to before, never visited, never knew a single person, in the middle of a pandemic and amid socioeconomic unrest, and I had to uproot myself alone. But it was all to chase my passion and the relentless pursuit of reaching my full potential, which right now happens to be at VCU Brand Center. So I'll go back to my question. How do you define yourself? There's a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin, and he said, most people die at age 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. And it doesn't refer to the actual physical death, but rather the death of one's hopes, aspirations, and dreams. And I can't help but wonder whether or not the reason we stop exploring new things in our life is because of these molds and definitions we try to fit into growing up. The age of exploration stops the second we start trying to define ourselves. Life is about discovery, and definitions limit our growth potential and exploration. They inhibit you from experiencing your authentic self, which naturally is a curious person. Which is why we should all strive to remain undefined. Go against the grain, Chase the unknown and never stop exploring your potential. Your comfort zone should not be a box. You should think of it as a bubble that expands when you realize that you have the power inside of you to make it bigger. We all should take a hard look at ourselves every once in a while to re-examine our position and start to inflate our bubble with more air. Don't be afraid to take up space. Remain undefined, because your world could be so much bigger, and you may never know.